Happy New Year, Goodmonth. What's good?
Hey, 23 up only. Those are the numbers right there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10x bags. That is the Happy New Year of 2023. What's good?
Yo, 23 so far is up only. I love to see it, man. I feel like a change is in the air. The degens are coming out ready this year. We dealt with a lot of pain in 2022. Frankly, fuck 2022, man. I'm deleting that shit from the memory. Not the parts we spent together, don't get me wrong, but that bear market was nasty. We're still in it, but maybe a glimmer of hope. I mean, what do you think?
Quick reflection on 22. It pales in comparison to 2020, like mentally, socially, emotionally, maybe not, right? Emotionally, like the bear market put people in on Down Bad Ave. They were just plucking up apartments on Down Bad Ave. It was like Monopoly. Everyone just like hit the ditch on Down Bad Ave, and they were just living there, and nobody was coming through. No one was collecting rents. Everyone just stacked up like sardines on Down Bad Ave. So it was
That's right.
it was a tough year for people, but at the end of the day, like when you zoom out on 22, like catastrophic things happened that should have thrown this thing overboard, and it didn't. Like, I just got to hit on this for 1 minute. 2020 was a pandemic. That was a black swan event that should have thrown everything overboard. It didn't. There's reasons for that, right? QE, we printed cash, all these things. 22 was like ripping the band-aid off that 2020 put on it. So think about what happened in 22, like euphoria in the crypto space. Like crypto was no longer Bripto. Like people in the mainstream started uttering the words crypto. Like people were getting bit by the gains of crypto. They jumped in and they got wrecked real quick. Like Euphoria plug got pulled. 3AC, all these funds, Voyager going down, Celsius going down, centralized exchanges going down, bear market. Like, talk about rugs. Some public companies went public in 2020, 2021 at like 400, 300 USD price levels and are now scooped up at the $30, $40 range. Like, that's down 10x. Yet no one's calling that a scam. That's just business as usual, right?
Yeah.
So it's tough. And then you take a look at FTX, the motherload of all motherload punches with 22. Like on top of everything and interest rates going up, which scare people. And it makes investors bearish if they weren't already bearish. And then FTX happens, like a full blown bank run to cause what is now fraud and one of the biggest scams. Like 8Bs gone, creditors hurt, investors hurt, the GOAT Tom Brady hurt. And here we are. We made
Yeah.
it out the other side.
A lot of people
Wow.
took a turn down bad Ave, and some of those people were never heard from again.
Right.
But we're still here. You know, we're out here. We learned a lot. We learned a lot of difficult lessons. We learned a lot about the space we're building. Yeah, so I'm excited, man. I'm excited for what's to come. I'm excited for what we've done. If you're listening to this podcast, you made it. You survived one of the most tumultuous years in crypto history, some of the most absurd events that could have possibly happened. And frankly, I think crypto, all things considered, did pretty well. I mean, where Ethereum's sitting at right now, you know, obviously Solana took a big old hit, but even today, as we speak, it's on a big rally. And my understanding is, Goodmonth, that you've started to take interest into Solana at these levels, at the single digit levels and up. You know, so
Plucked a few,
why are you
plucked a
why
few
are you
bags.
looking at why are you looking at Solana? You know, you're an ETH maxi. I thought you were ETH maxi. What the F are you doing over in the Solana block?
Hey, first and foremost, I'm never a maxi. Yo, you don't stay sharp as a maxi, right? You got to keep both edges of the sword sharp. You got to keep your leading foot sharp, and you got to keep your learning foot sharp. And you got to always be ready to be twisted and crossed over. Like, you got to always be ready to be wrong. And like, just a quick hit on that, I made the bet on ETH in 2014, 2015. I understood the fact that they were building on top of the network. I just thought if they could get developers over on top of the chain, like, this was going to really give a lot of value and utility on top of this program. And it worked. Now, the spirit that it took to believe in ETH when everybody was talking about Bitcoin, it made you feel like a nut job, right? You're talking about ETH, the spirit of that. Everyone thought you were crazy. Like, I've spent more time people thinking I'm crazy talking ETH than people thinking I've been right. And that's okay. That's how it goes. But about November of 21 going into 2022, the spirit of Sol was just vibrant. Like, this is what had happened. Pandemic kicked off. Kids weren't going to college. They were staying at home. They were like, hey, I can get a degree at home. I can also do other things. Hey, maybe I don't need a degree. Hey, maybe I'll join a developer boot camp. Hey, maybe I'll join my peers and start building on rad ecosystems that no one believes in. Oh, hey, maybe the Sol community is a place where I start plucking my gains, right? And the spirit of Solana was real, 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 real. Now, the ETH side of the world couldn't really digest that because the ETH side of the world has gone, from zero. They went from 0 to 1, and they really pioneered this whole, like, started with the coin. Now we're at this NFT space, and we have this ecosystem built. We've worked really hard. Solana came on at 1, and I think that's what people forget. Like, Solana isn't going 0 to 1. They're trying to solve a problem of ETH with TPS, with this transaction per second. So now Solana is going like 1 to 2. And a lot of Ethereum people are like, hey, this is apples to apples, and ETH wins out. And I'm like, it's actually apples to oranges, because I think with how easy it is to bridge coins across, and you can have ETH wrapped in WETH on Solana, I don't see why, we have to live in a multi-chain world. So I digress. That was a big take there. But my point being is, like, I'm into Solana because I'm into the next generation that I know will adopt a multi-chain world. Now, I'm a part of a camp where I'm a bit of a boomer. I'm comfortable with ETH. I'm comfy with ETH. But Sol has a following. They have a community. And there's one person in particular that has been the prism, the confluence of Solana, and that's Frank.
That's right. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Frank and his work today. The interesting thing is, like, this is how it works, right? When Solana was at 100, 150, 200, 250, the things they said about Solana and the bright future that it had, and the TPS and the speed and the ease of use and the user experience and all of this potential. But then down at $10, at $9, they're pointing at 0. The same people who are bullish at 200 are bearish at 9. But that's just not the way it works. Like, first of all, I guess the big question is, Goodmonth, do you think that Solana is going to survive the fallout of FTX, the impression of SBF? I mean, is Solana going to make it?
I mean, the problem with Solana, and one of the reasons why I hadn't really grabbed a bag, though I'd been watching it and rooting for it, is that it just wasn't decentralized enough. Like, there wasn't enough validators. Sam, when I talked to a lot of younger people who are all about Solana, they were talking about the Sam effect, right? The SBF effect. And they really believed in that. They deposited a lot of cope in Sam to bring them hope. They wrapped their cope in Sam, right? It was SBF wrapped cope to give them hope. We all wrap our cope a little bit, I understand. But that's what they were betting on, and their horse led them astray. Does that change the argument of Solana? Sure. If you were betting on Sam, then yeah, Solana, the price has shown what happens when you put your faith in Sam. But I think the reality is getting somebody out who had majority control of a coin, had the largest bag of a coin on an L1 is a good thing. You're distributing it, and it's at the point where there are people that are willingly buying bags right now. Like, I'm very confident that 8 was a bottom. I'm very confident that $8 in Solana was a bottom. I don't think we'll see that price again. I think people said, this is enough. I'm taking my bags, I'm packing them in, I'm going to buy this off of Sam's, shoulders and rain, and we're going to start phase 2. I think it's begun.
That's a great take, hot take. Love to hear it. I mean, you got to step back a little bit, right? Before the FTX news, Solana had just signed some type of agreement with Google to use their cloud services for node verifications. Very bullish. It ran to $38 on that news. Then this FTX fallout hit like literally the next day. And
right.
Keep in mind, it was down to $38 from $250. It took a hit all the way down to single digits. I mean, look, the FUD is priced in. That's the whole point. Like, at some point, you have to look at this coin. You have to look at this ecosystem. You have to look at this chain. You have to look at this community and say, look, this is going to make it. This is going to survive. And the FUD is priced in. That's how I feel about it. And I'm taking some exposures as well. And so that actually brings us to one of the most interesting topics that transpired during the last couple of weeks here. And that's the Christmas announcement from Franks Degods and the team at DeGods and Y00ts, talking about the change in chain off of Solana. And that kind of rocked Solana a little bit too. So for people who don't know, on Christmas Day, there was a big announcement planned. And there was actually 2 announcements, and they were that, number one, DeGods was going to be moving on to the Ethereum blockchain, and Y00ts was going to be moving on to Polygon. And this is scheduled for, my understanding, sometime in Q1, maybe late Q1. So what's your first impression, Goodmonth, on the news that DeGods is bridging to Ethereum in 2023?
Well, first off, my impression, DeGods moving to ETH, Y00ts moving to Polygon, is risky. It's risk. And I love to see it because he's risking on a known platform. When I say he, Frank is risking his community, his collections, his following, the cult. Can we say it? The cult that Frank has built around him, the moat that he's built. Frank, what's your moat? My cult. Period. That's what it is. He's built a moat with the cult, and he's gonna move this moat over to the most battle-tested, provenance-oriented chain. It's risk, and it's bullish. And Frank says things like, the only risk is not taking one. That's just words. But actually moving your collection over to the most trusted chain right now and all we've been through, like, when you do that, that is great risk. And we're going to see how it plays out. And I'm a huge fan for the spirit of innovating, for the spirit of changing your ways, for the spirit of trying to live another day. I'm a fan.
It is risky, And that's kind of one of the things he said, is that it would have been easier for them to just stay on Solana. But you know what? Like, he likes to break things. He also likes to break the internet. And this got a lot of attention on Christmas Day. It made a lot of people feel a certain type of way, and it was disruptive to people's Christmas, especially if you were a Y00ts holder, and which I am. And, I'm thinking like, oh, wow, DeGods to Ethereum, that's bullish. That sounds amazing to me. We'll talk a little bit more about why I think that. But when they said Y00ts to Polygon, I was like, man, is that bullish? And then we watched what the market did. The market didn't like it. Immediately, Y00ts floor started dipping. You messaged me. You're like, man, Frank left Y00ts bidless on Christmas Day, and they just started dumping down from 150 SOL to about 120 SOL. A lot of FUD. People were irate. Like, how could you do this to us? This isn't fair. And you know what? The thing that I respect about Frank is he expects FUD. He deals with the FUD head on. He got out there. He explained his side. He, said, "Look, this is why we did it. They did take money. I don't know. I don't have the confirmation, but I think it was like $6 million that they were incentivized to take by moving from Solana to Polygon. Does that sound right to you?"
I've heard somewhere between 5 to 7 M's allegedly. And I'm confused where the FUD comes from on that. Like, there was some takes that, like, Frank asked Solana for money, Solana didn't give the grant, but Polygon did. I'm just confused on the FUD there. Like, if he's leaving Solana because Polygon gave him money and there's a use case where Polygon works, like, that's phenomenal. That's great. If you're a founder out there and someone's going to give you a grant to build on a new chain, and you feel that chain is not going to put your users at risk, and you feel that you can elevate the moat that you've built, that's great. So I'm very confused where the FUD came from on him getting paid and taking money. Like, at the end of the day, you're happy that your collection is taking money and you want to see them do something with that. They're not coming to you to sell more products to you to get more money. That's huge. Yeah. Where's the FUD? FaXx, help me out. Straighten me out here.
Yeah, I think it's more cope is what it is. It's cope. Now, we got to keep in mind, like, on Solana, a lot of people, they're not paying royalties. So they're not making money on these y00ts and DeGods trades. People optionally can elect to pay royalties, but most people don't. And there's really no incentive for people to pay royalty at the moment. Now, that may change in the future with some of the things that these projects could do to incentivize people to pay the royalty. But they've already done their mints and they're not making royalties. And I think it's well known that they did hold a lot of their Solana down to these levels, unfortunately. So their treasury took a hit there. So look, in a bear market, taking some M's and the opportunity to innovate on a new chain, it was too appetizing. It was too interesting. Now, the problem that I see with the Polygon chain as it relates to NFTs is that at the moment, I think it's more known for gaming NFTs, GameFi, where there's a lot of transactions that need to take place. And so you're doing more transactions. You want them to be cheaper. You want it to be faster. But, I'm not aware of really like high value NFTs on the Polygon chain. It just doesn't have that reputation right now. Like the collectors that really, like, they see themselves as collecting, fine arted NFTs of high value. They're mainly doing it on the Ethereum blockchain. And I think that's the biggest headwind here is like, and I actually personally asked Frank that, and like how are you going to change that paradigm? Like, how do you approach something like that? And essentially, he wants to put that on his shoulders. He wants y00ts to bring a new vibe to the Polygon NFT network. He wants to break that mold and change the game. And that's a tall order, but I mean, that's essentially why they're paying him all that money, is because they want him to come and bring his audience and his influence and the holders and the vibes of what's going on in that ecosystem to Polygon, because Polygon does need a change of vibes there. Why do you think Polygon doesn't have like that kind of reputation with the high value NFTs right now?
I think it comes down to bridging. I think it comes down to understanding, bridges and getting ETH over and paying in Matic and paying in Polygon and such. Like, when you do, there are some mints out there that you buy via credit card and it goes to Polygon and such like that. But there is a little bit of just culture that Polygon has that TPS play. And it's that same culture of Solana. Solana and Polygon have a very similar culture where it's high transaction, it's low cost, and therefore it is not the like higher end of assets. So I think it's that TPS argument, but that TPS argument does kind of have this like this a kind of poor man's chain. I hate to put it that way, but you don't need a lot of Solana. You don't need a lot of Polygon. I was actually reminded by my business partner where, he mentioned how many wallets he has that doesn't have even full souls in it, like full soul coins in it, because he doesn't need it. And I'm like, yeah, that's impressive, right? Like you don't need a lot of Solana to transact on Solana and trade and do things. I think that has a lot to do with it. It seems like Solana is ample. It seems like Polygon is ample. I don't think a lot of people look into the supply and demand, economics of Solana and Polygon. I think that this is a David and Goliath situation with Frank taking y00ts to Polygon. And if anybody knows, right, when you really look at like what David and Goliath means, there's like probabilistic events that go on in order for David to beat Goliath. Goliath, huge, massive, has a lot of resources. David, small, skilled, not a lot of resources. David has to steal resources from Goliath in order to win. It's to take him every single time. And Frank has to not miss on Polygon in order to get people to shift. He needs to create a huge seismic shift in the way people think about Polygon. I think Frank is unfadable right now. I think he's reached the no fade zone. I think he's going to crush on Ethereum. I'm going to say that again. Frank is going to crush on Ethereum.
That's a take. So, and that's the thing. We don't really know the future of the floor price of y00ts as it relates to going on Polygon. But at the moment, y00ts and DeGods, they're both currently still trading on Solana. And I think what's happening is that the y00ts are kind of following the DeGods, and the DeGods are getting a pump. I bagged my first DeGod, when Solana was at $9. I saw an opportunity, I sniped one. And my reasoning, my rationale was like the same thing that you're saying. I think that this collection is going to do really well on Ethereum. Why do I think that? I think that because at the moment on Solana, they're the most valuable NFT. They're like the most like highly volume traded NFT of all time on Solana. But it kind of feels like a little bit capped. Like there's just not as much liquidity on that chain. So when you take that kind of project that already has the reputation, the community, the holders, the leadership, and you move it onto a chain that has more liquidity and more whales, and just it's kind of like a 1+1 argument to me. Now the question is like how much of it is going to get priced in before the bridge, and I think we're starting to see that now. But ultimately, I think between now and whenever this bridge happens, I think that DeGods, not financial advice, like probably will continue to climb. And then when they hit that chain, when they hit the ETH chain, that's going to be a big event in the space. And I definitely can see some Ethereum NFT traders that didn't really want to take the time to, load up on Solana, getting into DeGods at that time. Generally, I mean, is that how you see it, or how do you see this next quarter playing out here for DeGods?
I mean, take a step back and think about the power of Frank here. Like, I'm gonna get shade from this, and people are gonna fade me because they're like, you've gone so long on Ethereum, you've held your bags, you've had good takes, and now you're just pumping this Frank guy. Why are you doing it? And at the end of the day, right? I don't believe in people. I believe in sentiment. And that's what it comes down to. If sentiment doesn't lead to harm, I'm a student of sentiment. And I'm a student of what Frank is building. Like, this guy is absolute God mode on social media. and he's giving people hope. And people are wrapping their cope with Frank, and they're calling it hope. And I don't see why or how people can fade that. You know, you can take little chunks and take a pick at Frank, and you can try to bring him down by just taking swings at him. But the dude just goes harder. And the people then amplify how hard he goes. And if you want to fade Frank because now he's throwing out all these brands and saying users are going to go mainstream, what a sellout. Good for him, dude. He found a niche. Everyone is too scared to say the sellout things. Everyone's actually too scared to stand up and be like Nike, Y Combinator, Apple, Amex, all the top brands of the world. We're going to be that. We're going to partner with that. We're going to be bigger than that. And we're going to be that on ETH. Laugh at it, fade it, all you want. Big ideas like this sometimes turn out to results like this, and they're usually this much bigger than anyone else that could even try.
Yeah, I like that. And I mean, a lot of people are critical of Frank and, you know, FUD his decisions, like including myself. I've been critical, but the thing is, I've been critical for a reason, because I want to see what's happening. I want to get information. I want to see where this is going. And for what I've seen, I agree. This is the no fade zone. And it's difficult for people that have a bag bias for apes and mutant holders and this kind of thing, who think that their project is the number one. And they look at something like DeGods and say, oh, you know, this, you know, what's up with that art? You know, that art is, you know, XYZ, or, you know,
FaXx.
They're not this. Mostly it's like you have your blinders on, because this is what the main point I want to make. Like, with DeGods as a collection, like when you really understand what's happening with that collection, it's nothing to do with the art. It doesn't matter the art. It's a certain expectation in the community. It's a certain vibe in the community of diamond hands. So when you look through those different pieces, especially like the more rare skins, you see how few are listed. There's such few listings in this collection. And why does that happen? That happens because of diamond hands. You know, where does that come from? It comes from the beginning, when they tried something ridiculous called a paper hands bitch tax of 33.3% if you listed below the floor. I mean, how ridiculous of an idea is that, right? But like, obviously that didn't go well and it got fudded. But if you think about it, like, that was what embodied like that collection, is like, fuck your paper hands. And if you're on social media, you see a lot of people still have that 33.3 you know, in their name. Like, that's the mentality. It's about diamond hands. And we can sit here and we can talk about NFTs, we talk about their utility, we can talk about gaming, we can talk about brand partnerships, we can talk about all this stuff. But I'll tell you what, if the holders have paper hands and are just flooring stuff, it doesn't matter at all. Your collection is going to go to zero eventually. But if people are like really about that community and like are willing to hold and just willing to kind of ride through those waves, that's how slowly over time these things build. And that's like the main message I want to like explain to people who don't understand, is that, you know, it's not really about the art. It's about that community and that idea of, you know, diamond hands. And
it's an evolution of time though, too. We've never had, like, I agree with you. There was a point when it was about the art, and that was because we were swimming in our lanes and we were trying to carve them out. We were trying to make sense of things. In 21, we needed a reason for why the Bored Ape Yacht Club was taking off. It's the art, right? We needed a reason for why things were taking off and things weren't. And everybody was casting their takes. And one thing that was pretty inevitable was the art. Art that had sentiment went up. But then other things came in, right? Then it was delivery. Then it was setting expectations. Then it was announcement. Then it was not going silent on Twitter. Like, all these things were evolutions. So I'm going to go ahead and agree with you, FaXx. And I'm going to say that when people say it's about the art, it's an old take. That's a version take from the past. And I do think that the art of y00ts is better than DeGods. I do think that the art will matter to make a difference on Polygon, because that's the David Goliath. That's the uphill battle that Frank has to fight. Is he's actually taking the whole vibe of Polygon on his shoulders. That's a big take. But when you bring DeGods over to ETH, it becomes about DeFi. It becomes about the tech. And notice Kevin DeGods has mentioned that they're not going to wrap these NFTs. It's not a bridge, folks. They're calling it a bridge. They're not going to wrap the NFTs. This is a migration. This means you can print a new collection. My alpha that I've mined, that I'm going after, everyone that's fading DeGods because the art, buckle the fuck in. You're about to get brand new art, and it's about to be the third iteration of what they've learned from y00ts. Buckle the fuck up.
Yeah, this has some potential for face melting ahead. And the thing is like, again, like on Solana, you look, oh, it hit an all-time high of like 600 Sol and all of this stuff, but actually 650 recently. But like, that's when you compute that to ETH, that's kind of like a mid-tier blue chip price, 5 ETH or so, 6 ETH or so. Like when we look at the other projects on ETH, the ones that have achieved this much usually, will trade closer to 10 ETH. Not financial advice, but like, there's got to be another project that chases Bored Ape Yacht Club up the hill. Okay, we watched the Bored Ape bot on Twitter ringing off sales all the way from 0.5 ETH all the way to 100 ETH. Like, we watched that. It takes time, but it's kind of an amazing phenomenon. And I feel like Frank, with this risky and brash decision, may just have put the DeGods NFT collection into a position to reach all-time highs. And I don't think enough people really appreciate that yet. And a lot of people still have a lot of a cope about what's going on. And we do have, like you said, season 3, which I understand is like new art, and that's going to be exciting. So there's a lot going on here. And
can we take a moment and like actually think about this? Like the dude announced that he's moving. It's not just a chain. He's moving a community. It's like you see a house you like in one neighborhood and you got a plot of land somewhere else, and you literally are that bold to say, put it on stilts and haul it over. People do that. People will take a Victorian in San Francisco and move it to another spot. They'll take a Victorian in Portland and move it to another spot. It's kind of God mode. So, like, I mean, you're taking but actually look at that. You take the provenance of a home like a Victorian and you move it. That's what this is. You're taking the provenance of DeGods and y00ts and you're moving it over to something that they felt had more wealth onto this chain. And then the price goes up on the chain that it's going to leave. It only dropped for like 15 minutes on Christmas Day and the price goes up. I am buying soul bags at the bottom because I'm going to get this before it comes over, because I'm betting on the fact that Frank's going to bring new art to DeGods, because I'm betting on the fact that DeGods stands for DeFi, because I'm betting on these things that haven't been told to me. And there's more people like me that are doing that. This is crazy. This is absurd.
You just got your first bag of Solana at the bottom. It's already up, 30-40% since you bought it, which is ridiculous. Look, you're generally like an early adopter. You're early to Ethereum. You're early to Bored Apes. You're in a lot of chats with other Bored Ape collectors and high value NFT collectors and this kind of thing. I mean, have you guys discussed this point of DeGods? Like, what's the general sentiment in the Yuga community that you interface with?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I had some people calling me out and say that I mean, I've had some people call me out and say that I shouldn't support Frank, or like don't understand why I'm supporting Frank. And I'm just a student of sentiment at the end of the day. Like if you think about it, I supported this guy named Gordon Goner and this dude named Gargamel and Tomato Emperor Ketchup and No Sass. Like, why are you fading? Why do we fade people for supporting people when we know who they are? I don't understand. We supported monkeys that were behind avatars with no personal identifying information. But now because we see who this guy is, because he's loud, because he wins over social media, because he's temporal. I think that's one of the hard things for people. They want to understand and extrapolate where someone's going based off the things they've said, and Frank's a loose cannon. Well, I got a lot of like news for everyone. Like, loose cannons are about to run this world in 20 years. It's loose cannon city. It's stick and move city. Like, these kids, these Gen Z kids that are coming up right now have seen people on these trajectories, like Bill Gates on a trajectory, and the pandemic hits and he becomes public enemy number one for a lot of people. They see that. They pick up on that. They're going to stick and move. They're going to keep you guessing. They zig, you zag, they laugh, they zig again. You bet they have to zag back, and they create a new pattern for zigzag.
Yeah, it's about zigging and zagging, especially in this space. Fortune favors the bold, and one of the things, the hard lessons that I learned is there's been some collections that when they first came out, I didn't really understand them, or maybe I didn't like the art. I didn't think it was for me. I didn't pay enough attention. And then they just like run away. And it's like, man, it's hard to watch. It's like, I had opportunity. I just didn't, give that opportunity enough attention, and it passed. And so through some of those lessons, I've learned to like, hey, like, let me take a look under the hood. Let me try to understand better before I form an opinion. And I spent a lot of time talking to people in the Solana ecosystem. I spent a lot of time looking at this particular project, listening to Frank, trying to understand. And at this point, my conclusion is this is a no fade play. Not financial advice, but like, I wouldn't want to be in 2023 without some exposure to this, because it's going to continue to stay interesting. And so
I just think I got a question for you, FaXx. Like, if you're sitting in the market on ETH, let's say it's 2023, mid 2023, and there's a collection that is 3 ETH that just starts building steam, and it goes to 5 ETH. I haven't told you anything else about it. You don't know what the art looks like. You don't know who the founder is. Wallet distribution's good. Volume's there. Couple big names hold. Maybe some big traders are trading. What other info do you need to feel that you need one?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I want to understand why, and I want to understand like what's next. And if between the why and the what's next, if you add those together and it adds up to more upside, like, my next question is like, how much, like, they tell me about this collection, what's rare, what do people want to trade, like, I mean, it's sometimes that simple. And that's what happens, is like a lot of other factors come into play here. But at the end of the day, like you said, you got to focus on the basics. Chances are, you don't know as much as you think you know about what's happening. Chances are, like, you're not as good of an art critic as you think you are. Chances are, like, there's a lot of other factors at play. So in those kinds of environments that can be complicated and complex, you got to simplify and stick to the basics. Distribution. Is there a wide distribution of this asset? Listings, volume, just stick to the basics, the numbers, and that'll tell you a story here. And the story that I'm seeing right now is something that I don't want to fade. So with that, we hit on that quite a bit. I'll be excited to see what you end up picking out here. If you go with we're talking to Trip Summers here. We're talking about to a trippy for Ape. Is he going to go with the floor DeGod? Is he going to get something rare? I mean, what do you think? You going with
I'm
the
going
floor?
floor. Yeah, I'm going floor. I'm going for the points. I'm taking my DeGod points. I might nab an FTX jersey just for the culture because, dead gods.
Yeah,
FTX.
The dead
right?
gods with the FTX is pretty fire.
I just think that's a cultural relic. If that goes to zero, I'm gonna be just like, that's a salute to the system, But yeah, I think right now it doesn't really make too much sense to chase psychology on the dead gods. I truly believe the art's gonna change, so I don't. I'm probably gonna stay low and liquid.
All right, fair enough. So, I think the crazy part about it is that we've sat here, we've talked about this particular collection when there's a very exciting occurrence coming up in the space that we're heavily interested and invested in, and that's the trial of Jimmy the Monkey. That's how much attention Frank and DeGods have been able to steer, considering that there's a freaking Bored Ape Yacht Club mint coming up, and we spent half of this episode talking about DeGods. I mean, so let's dive into this trial of Jimmy the Monkey, because I do
think the DeGods and Y00ts thing is a sentiment to upside. Like, I do think that's a sentiment to upside. Like, I think people are really seeing DeGods and Y00ts as an opportunity to get upside on ETH. I think Yuga, it's like upside. It's just stability. It's different.
Yeah. I mean, in reality, a lot of that upside is baked in at these prices. We know that there's more upside, but in this type of macro environment, it's tough to appreciate that kind of upside. Just the fact that these assets have been holding the way that they have, like, that was the bear market play. The bear market play was like, curl up next to Yuga as close as you can and just, protect your
warm.
assets. Yeah.
Yuga was the Yule log, you're just cuddled up, just like hoping not to, burn away. Like, you're just trying to stay warm.
So we did a preview here of what's going on with the prologue, the trial of Jimmy the Monkey last episode. And then on December 28th, there was the next kind of clues, the next hints in terms of what's going on with the trial of Jimmy the Monkey. And they showed us this like mystery box. So if you go to that website, mdvmm.xyz, there was this like animated story of this mystery box, and hazy-b is pulling it up for us to take a look. So the first thing here is where the story now is being navigated by the great dog prophet Gary.
Right. And the hint we got coming into this is the prophet waddles. Like, there was some stuff going around that like it was going to be a Meebit. And I was like, absolutely not. It will not be a Meebit because, they don't waddle. We recorded that on the last episode. They dance, right? So the waddle threw people off. I think Pudgy Penguin's even pumped on waddle, which is just crazy. Yeah. Also, Frank is panged up. So that's another like note to Frank and like pumping the Pudgies. But
so it's a doggo. Off topic here. We got a doggo navigating us through the next steps of this right here. So again, like an ode to the doggos. They're a big deal, and basically like there's a number of different clues on the box, and I'm just gonna summarize so that people can go check it out for themselves. But one of like the most interesting things is, okay, there's some type of boom, some type of event, some type of explosion, right? Where it looks like things are getting fragmented. And then Gary tells us about how essentially like we need to find these shards, and it looks like these shards need to be like collected and put together for this kind of like power cube. And
Right.
then it looks like this power cube, it potentially powers like a mecha suit, like some type of robot suit. You know, if you think like Iron Man, right? Like Iron Man, he's got that, like, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's like that kind of power source that powers the Iron Man suit. And we kind of
Right.
see that here a little bit. So at this point, what it sounds like to me is we need to gather these shards in order to power a suit so that we can be prepared for the great battle here. And then we see an image of what looks like a mecha, you know, like a mecha ape or a mecha monkey battling a mecha dog, or maybe not battling. Maybe they're trying to close this portal, and there's like this kind of overlaying concept of a past, present, and future.
Right.
So, is any of this speaking to you?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, they're integrating the dogs. They took the dog attributes in the sewer. They're trying to figure out here, and when you create lore and stuff, you just like have this opportunity where you can go build on it. And they're trying to like merge this world with the story. And I think I like where it's going. I think that they're going to make people, I think they're going to ask people to make a choice. I think they're going to ask people to go past, present, or future with this mint. And I think it's going to create tier 4 through tier 1 on 3 different collections. And I think it's going to keep the supply really distributed across those collections. It's kind of where I'm leading.
That's interesting. That's an interesting take. You know, when we think about past, present, and future, we have the kind of warrior ape that like came out of the toilet, right? And
Yeah.
like presented Curtis with the box in the previous
Yeah.
video, right? And it does look like he was wearing more like kind of medieval armor or some type of armor from the past,
Yeah.
right? And then we have Curtis, who's like a modern day ape, right? Just the
Yeah.
present time. He represents the present time. And it looks like, you know, the ape from the past came to visit Curtis in the present to help set him up for this battle in the future.
Yeah.
You know, so how
I
does
kind
that?
of looked at this box. And was just like, this is just an FAQ. Like they're merging lore with FAQ for what minting is going to be, like the minting experience. So it's like, this is a new standard now that everyone's going to have to follow. If you do a mint, you can't like drop a dApp and just have words that tell people what the mint means. Like if you want to have a community around it, you're going to have to do an infographic that is like some animation that's interactive that helps you, like, especially if there's any strategy behind it. So I kind of saw this as more of just like, hey, the mint's going to be confusing. So we're going to give you like a story and narrative along these lines to help you navigate it. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So
I wasn't that stoked about this announcement, if I could be honest with you.
Why were you expecting like another video, or what were you expecting?
Yeah, I think I was expecting another video. I think the video was really fun. I think a lot of people needed it at the end of the year. I think the speculation that came with the video, the storytelling was very was high fidelity. And I think this storytelling, there's too many gaps in it for me. I like personally would have preferred a white paper to read, than this. I kind of felt, I'm just going to say, I kind of felt like a little like gamed, I guess. I kind of felt a little insulted by it, if I'm being honest.
Really? That's interesting.
A little bit. A little bit.
Well,
I just didn't think it was that fun.
Yeah, it was kind of like these clues. You know, it was somewhat interactive because you get to click on it and you follow Gary, narrating this. It does get back to like This key seems very important. So they're starting to paint this picture of this lore and the story. And where we stand is on January 11th. We're supposed to get like more information. I'm assuming like the full instructions for the mint, so that you can, as they say, quote, prepare for the mint. And so
Yeah.
hopefully that'll change your sentiment a little bit about it
I mean,
and
I'm
get
not
people fired up.
my sentiment's not down. I just was like the trial of Jimmy the Monkey's video was so engaging, and when it dropped it was like, this is a Yuga drop, right? And then this one, it just ripped through it real fast. I read it, I ripped through it, I saw the clues. It gave, some information. Maybe just flip them, honestly. Maybe you do the box first and then you do the video. Maybe that was the letdown, is that you see the video and it's like you want more to build off that. And of course, you got the box and you're clicking around it, but maybe not. Maybe not drag it out another week. Maybe just like, hey, the video's here now. Go play with the box and like make them all one. I guess what I'm saying, I woke up like expecting Christmas morning. I was excited. I was stoked. I was like, what are you doing today? Like, I'm freaking checking out the past, present, future. I'm ready to text some people and like get on speculation. I'm ready to like get my gears turning.
Yeah,
And
no,
this
I feel
box
you.
just kind of didn't do it. I guess the one thing was like, cool, the profit's like not a penguin. It's like I really needed the prophet to be a coda or a dog. I just like needed that because I was like, I can't do this like enter a new animal that's outside of the collection. Like I need the doggos to be like wrapped in, you know. So I
Yeah,
was
no,
pretty stoked
that's
about that.
fair. Yeah, I guess the video kind of set expectations high. I think a lot of people felt like there was going to be like another video because it was like the prologue, and it seems like we were going to get more animation. So that's fair. So I'm excited in general for what's to come here. I think before we wrap up, though, the next topic that I wanted to hit on here is like we spent some time over the past few weeks taking a look at the Apecoin Special Council election. We
Yeah.
had Bored Ape G over here on the
Yeah.
show. We heard his platform, and that election has concluded. And look, I mean, it's pretty interesting. Bored Ape G ended up taking the number one most votes, and then he's part of a group of three newly appointed DAO members. So it's Bored Ape
Shout out.
G, NFT
Shout out
Jerry.
Board Ape G. What a hustle, man. I mean, he's built for it. He's ready for it. I don't think anybody in the right mind would have taken on this campaign if they knew in hindsight what a grind it was going to be to get these votes. But the dude never quit. So Board Ape G and Jerry was extremely passionate towards the end. He actually like thought he was out and lost and just started letting it fly. Degentraland, you all know we came off pretty critical about him. We thought, you have 2 weeks to shine in the forum and you weren't doing it. He actually responded on Twitter Spaces that he felt like he shouldn't be judged for the 2 weeks. He should be judged on his whole like timeline. Well, you also like kind of took selfies and almost like socially assaulted Ryan Carson and BitBoy Degentraland. You also mansplained to me in DMs when I called you out on Twitter Spaces. Not fucking feeling that. You could come at me
Hold on. Let me
anytime.
let me credit you because you were going through the different candidates, um, and objectively evaluating them based on the actual like page and the AIP, the snapshot page, and the comments and the responses. And you demonstrated that Bored Ape G was just like all over it, lots of comments, lots of replies. He was like Johnny on the spot with what's going on. Vera the Ape, who is another one of our finalists here. So congratulations to her. And I have heard her since speaking on Spaces, and she's got really, I think she's got a great perspective, and I do think that she's going to be a good addition to this board here. But you fudded Degentraland because you were saying like, look, like he's not even really very active. He's not really showing himself to be taking this whole thing like that seriously in terms of like the work ethic. You basically questioned his work ethic. And what ended up happening is in future Twitter spaces and in future conversations, a lot of people were kind of pressing him on these points. And ultimately, I think the community all started to kind of have those same concerns. And at the end there, in a photo finish, he ended up getting bumped out. So he
Yeah.
ended up getting bumped out on the last day, in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I'm just happy because he was just gaslighting people in Twitter spaces, and you just don't get, you can't, I was active in the replies when I like would catch him like trying to pull one over, and luckily Farouk was like, on it and doubling back down and trying to like, make it right. But at the end of the day, like we can't, we're going into a world of social media where people are sticking and moving, and we said this earlier in the podcast, like the trajectory of people isn't, one to one and building in a linear fashion anymore. People are sticking and moving and changing their thoughts and flip flopping. And, that used to be like John Kerry in the campaign against Bush. If you remember, flip flopping was like what he got like called out about. And it was such a bad thing. But we're entering this social world where flip flopping is the thing. When you flip flop, like you have to stay within a bounds. Like you can't like socially assault people with, getting selfies and just absolutely pulling the rug out from underneath them and then run for the highest council of the best project. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's okay if sticking
Yeah.
and moving, but like you can't go end to end. And it's our job as a community to regulate that. No one else is going to regulate that. And I'm not for, canceling people. I don't believe in canceling people. Gentleland has a phenomenal career as a shit poster, and he should continue being a shit poster and working for Horizon.
Yeah. I mean,
That's all I gotta say.
look, the big picture is that the community showed up during this election. And the biggest problem with DAOs is like there's like lack of engagement, and then nothing happens. They can't push stuff through. The first step is to like people need to care. There's a
Yeah.
lot of money in this ecosystem fund, in this treasury. And now there's like a lot of interest and participation, and the community showed up, and what they voted for really is representation. And so I
Yep.
feel like we do have that now there is another AIP up. They're basically trying to phase out the Cartan group, take over those administrative duties, revise the AIP process. So things are moving, things are happening. It's an exciting time for the DAO. It's an exciting time for the space. I think it's a good general like sentiment to start 2023 with. We got some big things going on in the NFT space. I'm feeling like generally, kind of bullish right now about what's going on in the NFT space. Um, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of it. I think this was a great, this was a great clearing of the old way and in with the new way. And we're gonna grow from there. I'm bullish on I'm bullish on where we're gonna take this. I'm bullish on Yuga. Kind of sounded like I was down on Yuga this podcast. It's not the truth. Like I'm bullish on Yuga. I'm bullish on Frank. I'm bullish on risk taking. I'm bullish on ETH. I'm excited about the revival of Soul once Frank leaves. You know, when you when the ketchup stuck and you put a knife in the ketchup and you pull the knife out, the ketchup's gonna run. I don't know. Is that the Soul community? Like, is Frank the knife? I don't know.
Yeah, and like on previous podcasts, you've talked about how you're bullish on rebranding. On this podcast, you talked about how like changing your opinions and flip flopping within like a certain normalcy range is okay. And I think that's the thing is like when you get new information, changing your mind, that's a sign of intellect. Like if you have new information that is game changing information and you don't change your mind, you're probably being stubborn. So
Yeah. I bought Moonbirds because I was like, hey, they found this VC boy niche, and like, let's see how this runs. Token L. I bought, a Grail Chimpers. I was like, love the art. Like, I think they're really going to be engaging. Probably have one of the most engaged community, but like,
No. I spent like an hour like yesterday listening to this Chimpers space. Now it's definitely like a different vibe, but the art is sick. The pixel art slaps. And then keep in mind, they have this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, brand partnership. They're working on something together. At the end of the day, it's like a small collection. And, like these collections that are smaller, they typically don't get as much volume. They just typically don't get as much attention. They don't have as many community members. They don't have as many holders, these kinds of things. But
I'm still a Chimpers holder. I don't hold a Grail anymore. But I just really just shout out to Timper's art. It's phenomenal. Like, I've actually never been that moved by pixel art, and Timpers just puts out some of these things that it's just like amazing. I mean, it moves me. Like the one of ones that they airdropped to the Stake Chimpers with like the Long Day and the Daydreaming and the Sonic Boom. Like, those things are just phenomenal pieces of art. And like a lot of 101 artists that put art out there, you're not really buying it for flips. You're buying it for long-term provenance plays, like 20, 30 years, 40 years, 60 years, hand it to your kids. That's the asset that you're doing.
yeah, and they kind of like cemented their place in digital fine art history. They were part of the Sotheby's auction.
Yeah,
that was pretty interesting. There was a few pieces purchased during that auction. Actually, Eric Ebron, an NFT enthusiast, and Mutant Ape, he picked up a rare Chimpers from that auction. So that was pretty interesting to see. He changed it to his PFP. He's pretty excited about it. Yeah, man. So with that, like, that's our episode today. Never fade the podcast. If you take one thing away from this episode, I think it's that we're not going to fade DeGods moving on to the Ethereum blockchain. Yeah, man. Any final words today? Good month.
No, just like, we're not going to fade DeGods on ETH. We're going to root for Frank on y00ts. Yuga's coming at us still. A little bit disappointed with number 2, but hey, we'll take what we get. We'll roll with it. Let's get it.
Let's get it. The mint's coming up.
Let it go.
And we'll see what happens. A lot of
Well, Dex is in chat. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. RP got that heartbeat. Bridge built to the swamp, now the apes are barking. Picking up bananas like you ever heard a cat laughing. They on time sweeping. What's left? Got a red disease, call it out of weight. Headed down from the treehouse with a floor.